Nestled in the heart of a forgotten valley, surrounded by towering pines that seemed to touch the sky, lay the small village of Eldermore. The village had a peculiar reputation for being a place where the past never truly died, where the veil between the living and the dead was thinner than anywhere else. At the center of Eldermore was a grove known as the Whispering Grove, a place where villagers dared not tread after dusk. Legend had it that the Whispering Grove was once the site of a horrific massacre. Centuries ago, during a brutal winter, a group of settlers took refuge in the grove, seeking shelter from the biting cold. Desperation drove them to madness, and they turned on each other in a frenzied attempt to survive. When spring finally thawed the valley, villagers found the grove littered with the remains of the settlers, their faces frozen in terror, their bodies twisted in unnatural ways. Since then, it was said that their spirits lingered, whispering their sorrow and anger to anyone who dared to listen. One autumn evening, a young woman named Eliza moved to Eldermore. She was a writer, seeking solitude and inspiration for her next novel. The villagers warned her about the grove, but she dismissed their tales as mere folklore. Eliza had always been skeptical of the supernatural, believing that every story had a logical explanation. On the night of the harvest moon, curiosity got the better of Eliza. She decided to venture into the Whispering Grove, eager to see if there was any truth to the old legends. Armed with a notebook and a flashlight, she stepped into the grove just as the moon rose high in the sky, casting an eerie glow over the twisted trees. As Eliza walked deeper into the grove, the air grew colder, and an unnatural silence enveloped her. The only sound was the crunch of leaves under her boots. Suddenly, she heard it, a faint whispering just beyond the edge of her hearing. She turned off her flashlight, letting her eyes adjust to the dim light. The whispers grew louder, more insistent, filling her mind with fragmented words and sorrowful cries. Eliza's heart pounded in her chest, but her curiosity pushed her forward. She reached a clearing in the grove, where the moonlight shone brightly on a circle of ancient stones. In the center of the circle stood a gnarled tree, its branches reaching out like skeletal fingers. As she approached the tree, the whispers coalesced into distinct voices, each telling a tale of betrayal, madness, and despair. Transfixed, Eliza placed her hand on the tree's trunk. The bark was cold and rough, and she felt a jolt of energy surge through her. Visions flooded her mind, images of the settlers, their faces twisted in agony, their eyes wide with fear. She saw them turn on each other, driven by hunger and desperation, their screams echoing through the night. Overwhelmed, Eliza tried to pull away, but the tree held her fast. The whispers grew louder, deafening, until they were all she could hear. She felt the settlers' pain, their rage, their sorrow, as if it were her own. Her vision blurred, and she collapsed to the ground, the voices still echoing in her mind. When Eliza awoke, she was back in her cottage, lying on the floor. Her notebook was open beside her, filled with pages of frantic, scrawled writing. She couldn't remember how she had returned, but the memories of the grove were etched into her mind. The villagers found her the next morning, her hair streaked with white, her eyes wide and haunted. Eliza never spoke of what she had experienced in the Whispering Grove, but the villagers noticed a change in her. She became reclusive, rarely leaving her cottage, her once bright and curious eyes now clouded with fear. The grove remained as it always had, a place of whispers and shadows, where the past lingered and the dead refused to rest. Years later, after Eliza had passed away, her cottage was sold to a new family. Among her belongings, they found her notebook, filled with tales of the settlers' last days. But there was one story that stood out, a final entry that chilled them to the bone. They are still here, whispering in the dark. They know I can hear them, and now they know you can too.